Hunchback Creations. As you saw in the intro, today I'm going to make Sirius Black's Azkaban prisoner sign. Before we get started, I just want to say a huge thank you from me and Max to all of our old and new subscribers. We've gotten a lot of new subscribers this past week and we're just blown away by all of the positive responses and comments that we have received. But anyways, let's get started. So as you can see, I just started with all my measurements because I had no idea what I was doing and I didn't really find any template for the size for the entire thing. So I just had to look at pictures and I decided to make one that was 29 centimeters times 17 centimeters and a little extra centimeter on the top, so it makes the total 18 times 29 centimeters. So the first thing I did was just measuring out with my ruler 3 centimeters a line in the bottom and 3 centimeter line at the top. So that's the first outlines. Then I did the same thing and just measured out 2 centimeters on each end and made those, and just using a lot of my ruler for this project. After I just made those lines, I had a square in the middle, and from that I just decided to look at the pictures again and try and figure out where everything was going. So I measured from the line that I made 1/2 centimeter down, just to be an open blank space between the letters and the little windows. The windows I decided to be 7.5 centimeters, the space underneath it 1 centimeter, and then the bottom little window to be 2 centimeters. So I've just gone ahead and really measured that out, and the spaces in between the windows I calculated to be 0.8 centimeters, so that I would just fit in 5 of them in the space that I had in between the ends. So if you're still mildly confused of all my numbers, we have scanned it, so we'll leave that in the description box below if you want to take a look at it in a nice and clean manner. What I'm doing now is just taking an Exacto knife and cutting along the lines of the letters. And when I'm finished with that, I'm just using a tool to push it down, and that is just going to give that 3D effect of the sign when it's finished. And if the paper falls out like this, don't worry, that's totally fine. So I'm just going to work and push the cardboard. This is a plastic cardboard, so it's not normal, but you can totally use a normal cardboard and get away with the same technique. So you just really want to push the letters down and create that depth, and you just want to take your time. It's finicky and small, and like everything we do on this channel. So as you can see, now I cut out all the letters. Now I'm going to begin adding some joint compound. That's the stuff you fix plaster walls with if you don't know. So I'm just taking a little bit of that and pushing it into the letters just to even out the surface and making sure that they look nice and neat. Additionally, it's going to support up the little fragile pieces in the A's and the like small cutouts. So that's what I'm doing, and after that I'm going to begin cutting out the squares, and then I'm going to add joint compound mixed with glue all over and create a texture on the plate. Now I'm just cutting out the windows, and I'm just using my ruler as a support so that I don't go all wibbly wobbly over the entire thing. So that's just what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut them out and take my time, and then I'm going to use the joint compound on it after that. So I'm finished with the cutting out of the windows, and now I mixed some wood glue with my joint compound, and I'm just going to slap that on the entire thing. Just try not to like push too much into the letters. And what this will do is that it will help with that texture, because it's a really rough grid texture on the plate. And when it begins to dry, I'll just texturize it with my pencil, and additionally I might just use a little sponge to do this, just to give it that cool cool looking texture. So the sign has now dried after I added the joint compound, and I just peeled it off the backing in the bottom here. I just added on baking paper so that it will be released pretty easily. Now I'm just going over and peeling off the residue that got stuck, and you can just pull it off with your fingers really easily. And as you see, there are some pieces still left. They're a little bit thicker. Then I'm just taking my sandpaper and I'm just going to gently go over it. And if there's still some edges that are really thick in the corners, I'm just using my scissors close and just using it as a scrape to just get the last pieces off. So what I'm doing now is I'm just using some black acrylic paint painting over the template I just did. And if you want to have a closer look at all the symbols I made, there's a link for a PDF file in the description box below. So just take a look at that if you want to see all the little numbers and letters and everything in greater detail. Now I'm just going to distress the paper, so I'm taking off the template I just taped on while I was working with the letters. I just made a template out of some baking paper with some cutouts. So as you can see, it's thin and easy to work around. So now I'm just taking that off. Doesn't matter if it gets a little bit broken. So this is the template. You can just use it again if you decide to make another one, or you can toss it away. It's up to you. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to take some off-white, some acrylic paint, and I'm just going to dab that on in between the letters, and really you could push it on top of the letters as well, but then you might have to go over again with some black. I'm just doing this to remove the really ultra white color and just trying to make it look a little bit worn. Just get the excess off where it doesn't show, and just carefully dab that on. The other thing you can do is taking some soft pastels, some chalk, you know, the ones that you use in the street when you're little and you're decorating the pavement. But I'm just using that and scraping a little bit off with the metal part of my brush and just really brushing that all over just to distress the paper. And you could, if you don't want to do this before you paint the letters, actually make a little light tea bath and soak the entire paper in some tea. That will darken up the paper quite a bit, but I forgot to do that, so I have to distress it this way. So once I was finished with the weathering down of the paper, I just cut out a piece of semi-see-through plastic. I cut it out of one of these A4 folders that I had laying around. What I'm going to do now is just outline the end of my plastic here so I know where I want to glue it. It's difficult to glue onto the plastic, so I have to glue on the paper. I want to make sure that I don't glue so it's visible in the little windows once it's finished. So that's what I'm doing now. So I got my glue down, now I'm just going to attach the plastic on. What I want to do now is distress the corners of all the windows. So I just measured up and just thinking roughly where I want things. So I'm just going to put this to the side. And this is really used with solid black. So you can practice a little bit where it's not going to show and just get the hang of it and figuring out how much you want. Then I'm just going to start dabbing that down onto the actual number window. And if I want to look while I work, I'm just going to put it back and look if it's visible or not. It's still not visible, so I'm good. So I'm just going to continue and push that color all the way down, almost to the number 3. I'm just going to do that to all of the windows, even the small ones down here. And then when I put that on, you get that distressed look in the corners of the windows. So I'm finished with the windows, so I'm just going to put the window part to the side while I begin to paint the plate, or at least the edges of it, the window edges. So I just have some black mixed with a little bit of white. I'm just going to smack that on all the edges just to have a base color. And that is so it's easier to not spill any paint on the windows when I glue everything together. So the paint in the windows are dried, and now I'm going to glue on the numbers. So I'm just going to quickly use my glue gun and glue all these center poles. And then I'm going to add glue to the edges after that. So if there's any glue peeking out from the underside, you can just push it while it's still hot to the black edge, and then you can just cover it up with some paint after it has cooled down. So now that this part is glued, I'm going to glue it onto the cardboard piece that is 1 centimeter bigger. So just make sure that there is a 1 centimeter gap at the top, like this. Then I'm just going to poke the holes at the end after I glued it on. So it's glued onto the cardboard. I managed to roughly get it on as I wanted. It's a little bit crooked, but I just cut off a little bit of the cardboard just to neaten up the edges. Now I'm just going to take a really sharp tool and make some holes at the end, because there's 2 small holes at the plate at the top. I imagine that's where the chain is attached so that they can have it around their neck. So I'm just making the holes like that. What I'm going to do now is just add more of the glue and joint compound mix that I have. And I'm going to add that onto the crossover from the white to the other cardboard. Additionally, I'm going to add it onto the edges all around just to make it a nice, clean and smooth surface on the sides and bottom as well. So the joint compound and the glue is now dried, and I'm now going to paint it, and that's really the final steps for the entire sign. So first of all, I'm just going to paint with an off-white in the letters, and then I'm going to finish off with the black dark color with a little bit of details on the rest of the sign after that. The off-white is added on all the letters, and now I'm going to begin adding a black with a little bit of off-white mixed into it on the entire thing, except in the crevices of the letters, and that's just going to dry while I work on the rest because I'm impatient. But I'm just going to add that on the entire thing, and then I'm going to add a little bit of gray with some silver in the top details of the sign after that, just to give it a little bit of a dimension. After I was finished adding the black, I just began adding a little bit of silver with a sponge. And the way I did that, just adding silver, dabbing it a little bit on a surface so you get off the excess. So it ends up a little bit like this. Then gently, I'm just going to push that on to the black just to give it a little bit of that dimension I was talking about earlier. And if it becomes too much, you can just use your finger or a piece of paper just to get off if it gets too much on. And that is really it for the paint job. You just want that metal sort of finish on the top. So that is really it for the paint job. As you can see, there's a little bit silver on top of the black, and that's it. So that is the finished project for today. We hope you guys enjoyed it and that you go ahead and try it yourself. And that is really it for today. Thank you so much for watching.